Hi guys, today we are going to find out what if the compass was never created. You stand on the deck of an ancient Phoenician vessel, salt spray stinging your face as thick Mediterranean fog rolls in. The captain beside you frantically scans the horizon, but there's no magnetic needle to guide your way home. You watch as experienced sailors resort to dropping weighted lines, hoping to recognize the ocean floor's texture beneath. The stars above remain hidden behind the gray blanket, and you realize how utterly lost humanity becomes without this simple tool. You probably won't survive this journey. Maritime death rates in our compass-free world hover near 60%. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I'm curious where you're watching from today. You grip the ship's rail tighter as waves grow larger, knowing that countless civilizations will rise and fall differently. The absence of this one invention reshapes human destiny in ways you can't yet imagine. Now, sit back and let's dive into today's alternate journey together. You witness the first ripples of change spreading across ancient waters. You observe ancient Mediterranean civilizations hugging coastlines like children clinging to their mother's skirt. Greek merchant vessels rarely venture beyond sight of familiar headlands, following well-worn coastal routes instead. You watch Phoenician traders establish ports every few miles, creating a network of safe harbors. Without magnetic guidance, you see sailors developing an intimate knowledge of underwater rock formations and tidal patterns. The brave few who attempt open water crossings rely on migrating birds and floating debris as directional clues. You notice how trade goods accumulate in coastal cities while inland populations remain largely isolated. Egyptian vessels stick to the predictable Nile, avoiding the Mediterranean's unpredictable currents entirely. You witness the development of elaborate lighthouse systems, with beacon fires burning continuously along every shoreline. Coastal mapping becomes an art form as you see cartographers documenting every bay, inlet, and recognizable landmark. Maritime insurance never develops because the risks remain impossibly high for long-distance voyages. You realize that without oceanic trade routes, exotic spices and distant luxuries become impossibly rare. Civilizations develop incredible overland trade networks instead, with caravans replacing cargo ships as economic lifelines. You stand in a 15th century Portuguese court as Prince Henry the Navigator paces frantically before incomplete maps. His captains return from failed Atlantic expeditions, describing endless circling in trackless waters until supplies ran low. You watch Christopher Columbus's proposal get rejected not for being wrong, but for being suicidal without navigation tools. Spanish conquistadors remain landlocked, their dreams of New World gold forever out of reach across the ocean. You observe Vasco da Gama's attempts to reach India ending in disaster as his fleet disperses in storms. Portuguese explorers develop incredible coastal hugging techniques, but never break free from Africa's shoreline completely. The spice trade remains controlled by overland routes through Constantinople, keeping European nations economically dependent. You witness the development of primitive dead reckoning methods, but they prove insufficient for oceanic distances. European maritime schools focus on reading ocean swells and interpreting cloud formations above distant lands. You see how the absence of reliable navigation keeps the Atlantic as mysterious as outer space. Viking sagas become the only proof that lands exist beyond the western horizon, dismissed as mythology. European powers invest heavily in overland expansion instead, pushing deeper into Eastern Europe and Central Asia. You witness thriving Aztec cities expanding across Mexico, their temple pyramids growing ever taller without European interference. Tenochtitlan becomes a metropolis rivaling any Old World capital, its canals flowing with unprecedented prosperity. You observe Inca road networks stretching further south, connecting mountain settlements with incredible engineering precision. Native American agricultural innovations continue developing, creating sustainable farming systems Europeans never interrupt. The Iroquois Confederacy expands westward, establishing diplomatic relations with Plains tribes through peaceful negotiation. You see how indigenous languages and cultures flourish without the devastating impact of Old World diseases. Maya astronomical knowledge advances further, producing calendars and predictions that astound with their accuracy. North American woodland tribes develop sophisticated metallurgy, creating tools rivaling European craftsmanship. You witness the emergence of large-scale Native American maritime cultures along the Pacific coast. Indigenous trade networks span the entire continent, carrying turquoise from the southwest to Atlantic shores. The Pueblo peoples construct even grander cliff dwellings, some reaching unprecedented architectural heights. You observe how Native American shamanic traditions preserve detailed knowledge of medicinal plants and healing practices. You sail alongside Eric the Red as his Greenland colony struggles to maintain contact with Iceland's lifeline. Viking longships circle aimlessly in North Atlantic fog, their crews growing desperate as familiar landmarks disappear. You watch Leif Erikson's expedition to Vinland end in disaster when return navigation proves impossible. The few Norse settlers who reach North America become permanently stranded, unable to find their way home. Greenland's Viking population dwindles as supply ships from Norway fail to locate the remote settlements. You observe how oral navigation traditions break down when weather patterns shift unexpectedly. The famous Viking sun compass becomes useless during prolonged cloudy periods common in northern waters. You witness desperate Norse attempts to train ravens for navigation, but the birds prove unreliable guides. Trade between Scandinavian kingdoms becomes limited to summer months when stars remain visible longer. You see Viking exploration dreams fade as too many ships simply vanish into the Atlantic's embrace. The Norse sagas gradually transform from historical records into cautionary tales about oceanic dangers. Greenland's abandoned settlements become archaeological mysteries, their inhabitants' fate unknown for centuries. You stand aboard Admiral Zheng, his massive treasure ship, as it attempts to navigate the treacherous South China Sea. Without magnetic compasses, China's legendary naval expeditions become impossible logistical nightmares spanning thousands of miles. You watch as the world's largest fleet struggles to maintain formation across the vast Indian Ocean. Chinese admirals resort to following monsoon patterns and migratory whale pods for directional guidance. The treasure ships become scattered across Southeast Asian waters, many never reuniting with the main fleet. You observe how diplomatic missions to distant kingdoms fail when envoys cannot reliably return home. China's maritime dominance crumbles as smaller, more nimble Arab dhows outmaneuver the massive but directionless vessels. You witness the Ming dynasty's decision to abandon oceanic exploration entirely, focusing resources on inland development. The famous maritime Silk Road dissolves as reliable sea routes prove impossible to establish. You see how China's isolationist policies strengthen dramatically when ocean travel becomes prohibitively dangerous. Coastal Chinese cities decline as international trade shifts back to overland caravan routes. The world's most advanced shipbuilding knowledge becomes practically worthless without navigation capabilities. You enter Galileo's workshop where he puzzles over magnetic lodestones without understanding their directional properties. Scientific curiosity about Earth's magnetic field develops centuries later than in our timeline. You observe how navigation challenges delay crucial astronomical observations needed for mapping celestial movements. The relationship between magnetism and electricity remains mysterious longer, slowing electromagnetic discoveries. You watch Newton struggle with gravitational theories when maritime evidence remains incomplete and unreliable. Cartographic accuracy suffers dramatically as mapmakers lack precise positional references from oceanic surveys. The concept of magnetic declination never develops, leaving Earth's magnetic mysteries unsolved. You witness how delayed navigation science impacts the development of precision timekeeping instruments. Scientific expeditions remain limited to land-based observations, missing crucial oceanic data. You see universities focusing entirely on terrestrial physics while ignoring maritime phenomena. The scientific method advances more slowly when experimental verification requires only coastal testing. Global scientific collaboration becomes nearly impossible without reliable communication across oceans. You watch ingenious Polynesian navigators develop sophisticated stick charts, mapping ocean swells and wave patterns. Arctic peoples perfect the art of reading ice formations and interpreting aurora patterns for directional guidance. You observe desert nomads creating intricate sand navigation systems using dune formations and wind patterns. Coastal civilizations breed specialized seabirds trained to return to specific harbors from vast distances. You witness the development of floating observation platforms anchored at strategic oceanic positions. Maritime cultures create elaborate sound-based navigation using conch shells and whale song patterns. You see how certain societies develop human genetic adaptations for superior night vision and celestial recognition. Ancient astronomers construct massive stone computers calculating tidal cycles and seasonal star movements. You observe the emergence of professional hereditary navigator families guarding secret oceanic knowledge. Coastal communities establish elaborate beacon relay systems spanning entire continental coastlines. You watch societies develop sophisticated weather prediction methods using cloud formations and atmospheric pressure changes. Maritime peoples create detailed oral maps passed down through generations with incredible accuracy. You witness the rise of powerful land-based empires as the Ottoman Empire expands unchallenged across 3 continents. The Mongol trading networks experience a renaissance, dominating Eurasian commerce without maritime competition. You observe how the Holy Roman Empire consolidates power eastward, filling the vacuum left by absent oceanic explorers. Chinese dynasties focus their immense resources on continental expansion, conquering deep into Central Asia. You see the Mughal Empire extending further south into the Indian subcontinent without European maritime interference. African kingdoms like Mali and Songhai flourish longer, their gold trade routes remaining undisturbed by coastal competitors. The Russian Empire pushes further into Siberia and Alaska, encountering no competing maritime colonial powers. You witness how the Inca Empire potentially expands northward, meeting other indigenous civilizations peacefully. Regional superpowers develop sophisticated overland military technologies, focusing on cavalry and siege warfare. You observe the emergence of continental alliance systems replacing maritime trade partnerships. Cultural exchange happens primarily through land routes, creating different patterns of linguistic and artistic development. The balance of global power remains distributed among multiple regional hegemonies, rather than maritime colonial empires. You step into our modern world wondering how GPS satellites might never have been launched without maritime navigation driving space exploration. Global shipping networks remain fragmented, with goods moving primarily through expensive overland railways and air cargo. You realize that international standardization of time zones never develops without the pressing need for oceanic coordination. The Internet's global connectivity faces fundamental challenges as undersea cable laying becomes nearly impossible without precise navigation. You observe how climate science remains incomplete without comprehensive oceanic data collected over centuries of systematic exploration. International law never develops maritime codes, leaving huge gaps in global legal frameworks governing trade disputes. You witness how cultural globalization proceeds more slowly, with isolated populations maintaining distinct traditions much longer. Modern renewable energy misses crucial offshore wind and tidal power sources that require precise oceanic positioning. You see how geological understanding remains limited without deep-sea drilling and oceanic survey data. Emergency rescue services lack sophisticated search and rescue capabilities that evolved from maritime navigation needs. The concept of global citizenship never fully emerges when physical connections between continents remain tenuous and dangerous. You contemplate how humanity's relationship with the ocean remains one of mystery and danger rather than mastery and exploration. You drift back through the centuries, watching this compass-free world settle into its unique rhythm of cautious coastal exploration and vibrant overland empires. The absence of one small magnetized needle reshapes the entire human story, proving how seemingly minor innovations can redirect civilization's course. Maritime mysteries remain unsolved, with vast oceanic territories serving as natural barriers rather than highways connecting distant peoples. You realize that technological progress doesn't halt. It simply flows down different channels, creating alternative solutions to humanity's navigation challenges. Indigenous civilizations flourish in their isolation, developing sophisticated cultures without the devastating interruption of sudden maritime contact. The world remains more fragmented, yet perhaps more diverse, with regional powers balancing each other rather than succumbing to oceanic colonial dominance. Scientific discovery takes different paths, with land-based observations driving astronomy and mathematics, while oceanic sciences remain primitive. You see how human ingenuity adapts, creating brilliant alternative navigation methods that work within the constraints of compass-free travel. This alternate Earth reminds us that our timeline's global connectivity wasn't inevitable. It required specific technological breakthroughs at crucial moments. Perhaps most remarkably, you observe that humanity's relationship with the sea remains one of humble respect rather than confident exploitation. What aspects of our modern interconnected world do you think we take for granted that could have developed completely differently with just one missing invention?